especially in the early days, like we're not thinking long term. We're thinking solve this problem, Band-Aid right now.
We were just going off our gut instinct. What's their profile in terms of fact find, in terms of follow through, in terms of quick start, and in terms of implementation?
Another thing that we learned over the years is just thinking about this person's life capacity. Like, what are their goals in life?
It starts with getting clear on what the role is. What are the expectations? Putting together the job description, figuring out the KPIs, and then putting together the job posting. I'm a big fan of the who method. Tell me about where you worked before. How would the person that you work for rate you on a scale from 1 to 10? What's your background experience that makes you feel like you'd be a good fit for this role? And then most importantly, where do you want to see yourself in the next 5 years? All right, welcome to another episode of the Scaling Together podcast. Today we're going to talk all about building the team and building the team that builds the team that makes the companies work.
So we got some questions here that we've been asked over time from different members in the group. And we thought, what a better way to address it than just sit down and really hash out and have the space for each one of these. So we start with the first question. It is, what is our first hire? What was our first hire like? And how did it impact our dynamic as a couple?
You know, we had a lot of hires along the way.
Yes.
If you go back to when we started Plumbing and HVAC SEO, you know, it was account management, and we hired Yesenia to run the account management team, and we needed a secondary account manager right at that same time. And hiring that person, training that person, getting them ramped up was a really interesting process. Would love to hear like your experience with that.
Super necessary. You feel like you can conquer as many clients as you can. At some point, you feel a bottleneck where you're like, okay, there's no way that I can continue working on all of these different accounts and giving them the right amount of energy and time associated. And so in order to continue moving forward, you need to hire somebody else as well. And so we put out an ad for it and hired the right person in the right seat and did the Kolbe test and all that. Got to meet the very tiny, I think it was like 5 of us in the office when we got to that point, and kicked it off. Very new, very green to the whole thing as far as hiring and firing. But that was the experience of our first hire. It was great.
Yeah.
She was wonderful.
Yeah.
And stayed with us for a long time.
No doubt. I think any position you need to hire for, it really starts with looking at the accountability chart. Like in any company, there's only a handful of functions, right? There's sales, marketing, and then there's operations, account management, and
finance,
admin, right?
Yeah.
Basically, and then there's sub areas within each of those. And the best way to figure out who that next hire is to look at where time's going, look at where there's balls being dropped in the organization, and that becomes the shining light. That's who we need to hire next, or that's who we need to put in place. And when you've got that, then it's just thinking through your hiring process, right? There's a million things that you could do. And when you're doing it the first time, you do it one way. And then when you do it the next time, you do it a little bit better. But one of the things that really helped us with that first hire, and I think, well, maybe not the first hire that I wish I had known when we made that first hire, was personality profiles.
Yes.
Right. You know, we hired at that time, just, hey, she seems nice. She seems like she'd be good on Zoom sessions.
She seems smart.
She seems smart. She's got a degree from UM, I think, at the time. But we were just going off our gut instinct. Over the years, we discovered Kolbe assessments and really looking at what's their profile in terms of fact find, in terms of follow through, in terms of quick start, and in terms of implementation. And nowadays in the agency, we're always looking for somebody that's high follow through. And those are the people that tend to be consistent in the role, that are going to stick around long term. And that was one of those lessons that we learned. She was great, but being, more intentional with getting the right people for these types of roles.
Yes. And we focused when we need somebody now. It was like we need somebody like a week ago, month ago.
Yeah.
But when we finally do push the button on that, we're not fully, especially in the early days, like we're not thinking long term. We're thinking solve this problem, Band-Aid right now.
Yeah.
So another thing that we learned over the years is just also thinking about this person's life capacity. Like, what are their goals in life? What do they actually enjoy doing?
Right.
Where do they see themselves in 1, 3, 5 years from now? And building a plan of how they're going to grow within our company.
Yeah.
Where are the movement upwards? If they want to work in different areas, provide more responsibilities for that. And so on. Training is another one, having a growth plan for that so that each quarter they are moving themselves forward as well and making them a better hire outside of our company if they don't always stay with us. You know, just making each employee the best version of themselves that we possibly can while they're under our care is one of those things where we are just like all in for training. We pay for it. We help them figure out what that looks like, whether it's a book or it's a training course, and kind of move them into the thing that they're most passionate about.
Yeah. And if you fast forward now, you know, the decade since then, basically several hundred hires under our belt. What do you feel like the process is today when we need to get somebody new? You're really involved in, one thing I know is that you've got a great instinct with just like subconsciously that person feels like the right fit. Like they feel like they're the right character traits. And somebody I might pull the trigger on immediately, you'd be like, I don't know. And you're usually right with those gut instincts.
I think we tag team really well on these calls whenever we meet with potential new hires. Of course, our team usually goes through several of them. And then when we've got the last two candidates that seem like the best options, then they're presented to us and we get on those calls together. And you tend to do a lot of the talking, which works really well. I sit there and I take in, expressions and feature and kind of gather whether or not this person's going to be a right fit. Like I really let the questions and answers sink in and come up with what we need to ask them at that point. But yes, it's been something that we fine-tune over time. It's experience means so much for something like that. You can't really shortcut that level of expertise. You just really have to see what happens when you hire a particular person who says that they're okay with working remotely, but what does that really mean? Like, have they done it before? Have they, do they have like a set routine that they are going to lean on when it gets a little lonely and things like that? So just knowing what questions to ask has also been a big piece of it.
Yeah, I think if we're just practically speaking about the hiring process and who we would pick and how we would pick, it starts with getting clear on what the role is, right? Like we're going to hire whatever the role is. What are the expectations? Putting together the job description, figuring out the KPIs, and then putting together the job posting. What's really cool, and I know you're really, really into AI and ChatGPT, is we can use ChatGPT and great prompts to help us refine those job descriptions and refine those roles. Then we post the job and we've got to vet the candidates, right? You got to figure out like who's going to be a good fit, who's not. Used to be, we would just get a ton of resumes and, it's like, I don't know, like
they all
seems
look
good
the
on
same
paper.
After,
Like, I guess I got to call 100 people and schedule with 100 people. I think what we've moved to over the last couple of years that's worked really well is depending upon the role, if it's like a client facing role, sales, account management, customer service, doing a video-based application, right? Where they have to submit their video in advance. Here's me, here's why I want this role, here's why I think this is a good fit. And you can hear their voice and you can hear the inflection in their voice. And if it's a doing role, like building a website or doing SEO or whatever it is, actually giving them a test project in advance 100%. And doing a small snippet of a test. And then, obviously the good candidates get on an interview. I'm a big fan of the WHO method, which is, tell me about where you worked before. How would the person that you worked for before hire, rate you on a scale from 1 to 10? Obviously, if it's not a 10, that's an indication. What's your background experience that makes you feel like you'd be a good fit for this role? And then most importantly is what's your long-term vision? Where do you want to see yourself in the next 5 years? The answer to those questions typically give you a good indication. And I'm the one that asks those, and you're usually the one that's like, they said everything right, but there was something subconscious about the way they said it or the way they interacted that didn't feel like a good fit.
Yes. And then there's a sigh of relief when we finally pick the right person. We're like, okay, we solved this problem. We have the right person in the right seat. Let's move forward. And there's such a feeling of let's just hope that they do well, sink or swim. Here's the work that needs to be done and go forward. But that's just where it starts. Once they come through the door, that's where their whole journey begins. And so then it's a whole other series of sending them an onboarding gift. We like to do a welcome box that has so many things, like, for example, our mugs and shirts and everything to make them feel welcome to the community. And then we have different ways of connecting them with the rest of our team so they understand the inner workings as well. They sit with different departments and find the whole experience from start to finish, from what sales goes through and membership and with our agencies as well. And it gives them a big picture view of what to expect, of what we're building, telling them about the goals, telling them about the core values, and that, which is another thing that we use in order to hire and to fire people, is, are they hitting those 5 core values? And it wasn't ones that Josh and Yesenia came up with in a room by ourselves. It was our entire core team saying, what is it that makes our team different than others? If they were to come in today, what is it about each of us in a room that makes us work? And so for us, we have a certain set of being resourceful, being responsive, and so on and so forth. And so coming up with those core values is so instrumental to the entire culture of what they're stepping into. And having at least a 2-week training plan of exactly when they're going to start work, what time, when are they going to end, what are they going to learn that day, who are they going to sit with, what are they going to work on, is there any pre-work that they should be doing between their first day of work and before that. So much goes into getting their feet wet and helping them seed the vision of, this is what we're up to. This is how you fit into the big picture. And then also asking them, what are your goals? How do you fit in? Like, is this a good match for you? Because they're just like we're looking to see if we made the right hire, they're also looking to see, like, did I make the right decision with this company? So it's just bringing both things to the table for each hire has been really big for us.
And what's great is, if like scaling together, right? You're doing this with a spouse or a significant other, you know, you get to make those decisions together, and you get to have each other's best interest and the company's best interest at heart.
Next question. Have we ever disagreed on hiring someone, and how do we handle it?
I mean, I don't think that we have, because we go through this process together. We decide in advance, like, this is a role that we need to hire for, and we put our heads together with how much should we pay for this role? How do we compensate? I don't know if you have a different opinion.
100%. There is not one person on our team that you thought we should hire and I didn't, and vice versa.
Right.
We make these decisions together, thoroughly trusting the other of, you bring in like, yeah, they're Kolbe and their results were this. And then I'm like, yeah, their personality profile and their back history and experiences are this. And so we kind of just meet together, and we always end up agreeing once we like look at all the stats. We're like, yeah, this is a right fit, or like, maybe this might be a little red flag, problematic for what we're looking for specifically, not that the person is, just for this specific role in our company.
Yeah.
And that's the important thing to think of. Like, it might be a wonderful person, awesome human, has so many great intentions, great experiences, but do they fit your business? Do they fit that particular role? Is the important piece. How do we divide responsibility for managing the team?
I think the division of responsibility comes down to the accountability chart, right? It's like, on the accountability chart, if you're implementing EOS, which we're a big fan of, you have clarity of roles, you have clarity of what your actual bottom line accountable for in the organization, and you divide based on that.
And specifically in our company, I'm the president of the company. I also manage the integrator role, and I oversee the events. And you're the visionary of the company, and you also oversee marketing and sales. And so that's how we divide and conquer within our organization. And then we show up for our team meetings and our leadership meetings and so many other things that we show up for, but that's basically the main breakout. What's one system we put in place that helps us lead effectively without micromanaging?
I mean, the main system I would say is EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System. If you haven't read the book Traction, that's kind of the starting point of what EOS is. And it's a set of operating procedures, basically, where you've got an accountability chart, who's in the company, building your leadership team, putting the scorecard and the data metrics in place for that. And then most importantly is the level 10 meetings and that rhythm of meeting every single week, spending 90 minutes with a very specific agenda, and using that as the main place to move things forward in the organization.
Also, the type of people that we hire, and when we hire them, we thoroughly explain what it means to own your role. And so when we hire somebody, we don't hire a doer. We hire somebody who is responsible, somebody who's going to be a leader in the organization, not necessarily that they are managing other people as a leader, but that they themselves are a leader in their own role. So that means that if there's something they don't understand, they are resourceful enough to figure it out on their own, and they don't continue to ask every little question like, oh, what should I do about this? What should I do about that? Like you are owning it. And that also means the future position of that. So if there is an evolvement of that role of future, how can we continue? Because we're always about how can we increase every single part of our business by 1% every day, not just ourselves, but also the business. And so looking forward, we need to have people who own those roles so that they can be constantly thinking in that one piece that they own of, okay, how can I make this part of the company the best it can possibly be? And constantly be thinking along those lines. It would be absolutely impossible for you and I to do that for every part of our company. What works is the fact that we are hiring leaders, even our executive administrative assistant, our person who works on websites behind the scenes. Like every single person is a big leader, and they have a lot that they represent and that they do in this company to make things work. And if one chain is broken, that's where we have issues that come up with retention or with hiring new people. Like it causes such a big ricochet. If there's just one person that's not stepping up to the plate, they're the weakest person that's going to bring the team down, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think you do an amazing job on the onboarding. And it's just something you instituted early. It was like, when you come in, we're going to indoctrinate you in the organization and the core values, and really emphasize that, we're not going to micromanage you. We're not going to tell you exactly how to do every step in your role. Like, you need to figure out what needs to be done. You need to innovate. Come to us when you need help. But one of our core values is innovation and resourcefulness, which means if you've got a problem that could have been solved by you Google searching or running a ChatGPT request, that's a problem. And I think, that has really helped put the right people in place that understand that, but also that don't feel like they're being micromanaged with a start the day, here's your task list, end the day, did you do everything you said you were going to get done today? That doesn't even exist in our world.
Yes, we don't do the time clock with our team, and our entire team is remote. So we trust that the work is getting done, and we see the fruition of what we're hiring them for is not a daily task of items list. It is, these are the things that we need to solve for, and let's get them solved. And we're completing rocks. We are progressing the company forward. Our revenue continues to increase. We keep hitting our goals. And so that is the main objective, not are you punching in and out? Are you right there at that moment? Like, how long are you taking for lunch? Like, are you, we are hiring, again, people who are responsible for what it is that they're bringing to the table. Another thing that we do is gifting is a big thing. And on Slack, we have this app called Karma, where the team is able to gift each other these Karma points that add up to the shop that they can go and spend Karma points on and get a gift card or cash bonus that they can use for gifting each other during Christmas and birthdays and and their families and stuff. So that is a very fun way to bring in our core values based on, you're being responsive in this area. I'm going to gift you Karma points, or hey, thanks for really helping me out on this one project that I need your help with. You're being a team player, which is another one of our core values. And so that's been really fun to see them like cash in on a bunch of the money as they're doing this every single month.
Yeah.
That's a great way to connect the crew because we're remote. Because otherwise we would absolutely love to just take them out to dinner every single month. But we can't because one's in Ohio, another one's in Texas, and they're scattered all over the place. So that's a great way to do it. But for EOS, since we do this annually, we do get the team together. And that has been a huge dynamic change to see everybody in the same room. And even though it's the same conversations that we've been having for years, but having them in the same room together where they're hashing it out in person, it creates even more of a safety zone where they feel comfortable sharing. And that is one of the biggest things of a healthy team, is feeling okay to speak up when you feel uncomfortable about something that's going on in the organization. So that has been huge for us. Big game changer. How do we stay aligned on the company culture when we lead different departments?
I think it comes back to EOS and having
so many times.
Having the annual planning, having the quarterly planning, having the weekly level 10s. Hard to get out of alignment when everybody's clear, everybody's rowing in the same direction, and we're all on the same page.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. What's the hardest personnel decision we've had to make together?
I think this is a good one to end on for this particular episode. I'll let you speak first.
You handle this with so much grace. You do this so well because it's a very stressful situation. Anytime that it's people involved, people that we love and we care about, and we've spent so much time, more time than our family a lot of times, with our team. And we try our best to get them connected with training, and we help them in every way that we can financially, and you know, giving them raises when they should be getting raises and things like that. And so when a person is, for example, in this specific scenario that I'm thinking of, one of the hardest decisions that we had to make was someone who's just a complete rock star. And they were just absent a lot. And being new to having a rock star and having a situation with somebody who is amazing at what they do, just nailing it, where you don't even have to worry about them. You don't have to think about it twice. Like, you just give them something and they complete it and they take it to the ultimate limit. Like, it's just amazing. And so we took our time before we finally made the decision to let this person go ultimately, because they were just taking too much time off. And it was starting to disrupt the team, and the team was relying on this person so much. And so again, going back to that one person, and even though everyone is pulling in 110, having that person, that one person, one cog that's out for like 2 weeks and completely unknown about it, you know, does a huge disruption. And so we had to do it because of the team first and foremost, in order for them to get work done. It wasn't fair to them.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to make those tough decisions is to be objective about it, right? Like, what are the core values of the organization? Do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have capacity to do it well? And what are the KPIs, right? And if any of those things are out of alignment for the person in that role, even if you love them, even if they're amazing, even if in a lot of areas they do really well, you have to make the right decision and hire and fire based on your core values. And we had to make that tough call.
Oh my gosh.
It was painful. It created disruption.
We stayed up
so
late
much better
nights
on the other side.
It stressed us out so much because it's an emotional decision, for sure, 100%. Yeah. So that
excellent. So there's some of our key insights and takeaways on building the dream team and doing it together as a couple. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, or if you happen to be watching this in a place where you can do that. Share this with other entrepreneurial couples that you know that might benefit. And if you've got follow-up questions or thoughts, post them in the comments. Stay tuned for a future episode of Scaling Together.